Prince of Wales, of course, having now waded into the Middle East conflict after meeting Red Cross aid workers during an engagement yesterday.
So, anyway, he released a statement, and in it he said he's deeply concerned about the terrible human cost of the conflict with too many lives lost.
Well, let's speak now to royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliams. Richard, it's really interesting to hear, isn't it? Good morning to you. To hear from the heir to the throne on such a controversial topic. I mean, we saw King Charles, when he was in the same position, talking about architecture, talking about the Prince's Trust, helping people pull themselves out of poverty. But this is one of the most controversial topics that the Prince of Wales could have chosen to get involved in.
I do remember growing up how risque the Prince Charles, as he was then, was thought to be by commenting about the environment or architecture, Richard, though. Let's not forget that.
Oh, that's absolutely true. I think here, what he's doing, it's an impassioned and emotional plea. What it has been carefully balanced around are two visits, two engagements, one involving the humanitarian, the Red Cross, and the other a visit to a synagogue. But there's no question that his language will resonate. The fact that he believes, which is obviously the case, that far too many have died, which is the Mail's headline, and the Telegraph. In the Telegraph, it's interesting that this appears to have been coordinated with Number 10, and I don't believe he would have spoken as he has if King Charles had not approved, because with the King suffering from cancer and currently recuperating, or so we hope, at the moment it's up to the Prince to articulate, and this is undoubtedly, it is a shock intervention. It is in uncharted territory. You could also argue.
Did we lose you there, Richard? Not sure if you are still there.
Yes, you could also argue that what he sees is a divide between the political. I mean, he visited the area, the first royal to pay an official visit to Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories in 2018, and the humanitarian. So it could be argued that politically, by mentioning and emphasizing the terrible cost, but this is an emotional statement in that respect, but also it could be argued that this is humanitarian and he isn't taking a political stance, because the argument has always been with the royal family that they mustn't go into party politics, anything that's party pre, because they're symbolic of national unity. That is unwise.
Richard, we now have been joined on the line by Graham Smith. We say hello, good morning to him. Graham Smith is the head of the organisation Republic. Graham, you've heard what Richard's had to say about Prince William. Well-intentioned, we all agree. Naive, or what would you say?
Well, I think it's all been overblown. I mean, he hasn't really said an awful lot. I've seen some statements saying that it's a powerful statement. I mean, he's really echoed sentiments that very few people could disagree with. He's not actually called for a ceasefire. He said that he would like to see the fighting stop, which I think everybody would, regardless of what side you're on. Yeah. He hasn't said how that should stop.
But the principle, Graham, the principle we're talking about, is this an area he should be letting his views be known at all? We refer to the late Queen Elizabeth II, who would never have got involved in anything like this.
Well, we should have someone in that position who can say something, but it needs to be something meaningful. Otherwise, it's a bit pointless. As I said, what he has said doesn't go very far, because he isn't in a position to say much more because of that concern of royals of overstepping a line and getting themselves into hot water. And in those circumstances, you can't then challenge and hold to account and scrutinise those people.
Richard, you're nodding your head there in disagreement. Tell us why.
Well,
Sorry?
Graham was saying that he hasn't said anything meaningful. I do think that what he's said is meaningful, and one of the things that's significant, and that is because I believe he is royal. It's the world's most high-profile family, and there's no question that what he says. If you take the Earthshot Prize, if you take, for example, his campaign against the illegal trade in wildlife parts, in ivory and so forth, where he intervened with President Xi of China. I mean, there's no doubt that what he says, because you see the headlines, and this is worldwide, it does make a difference. And the facts that the royal family is very, very cautious in any territory that's controversial, and it should be. But nonetheless, this is a humanitarian crisis. The fact he's highlighted it and the fact that it's him has made a difference. Otherwise,
it doesn't make any difference at all. I mean, the idea of highlighting this, everybody in the country, everybody in the world knows about this. They can see what's going on. You know, the Earthshot Prize, people are well aware of the climate crisis. It doesn't make any difference. He's a huge hypocrite on the environment. You know, he said several years ago that the Middle East peace was his life's mission. He said that the environment is his life's mission. He said that homelessness is his life's mission. And when you actually look at what he's doing, I mean, he's now said he's going to do a number of engagements. As far as I'm aware, it's 2 engagements over several weeks. That's all he does. I mean, this year he's only done 4 engagements. In his
to be fair, his wife's been incredibly ill and in hospital, and I think most people would think that's fair enough, as is his father. Sorry to interrupt, chaps. I just want
health crises whilst also having to do work. And he is someone who has a huge staff of 60 people, whilst also having this gushing coverage about these statements, which don't really add up to much.
Okay, and I just want to ask this final question, Graham, and I'll put this one to Richard as well. If everybody is concerned that the Prince might be straying into politics, and as you point out, Richard, it's party politics, that where there's any division of opinion, particularly, that the royals have to be careful. There seems to be pretty much ubiquitous agreement from all 3 of the main parties at the moment that actually fighting needs to stop. Whether the terms of that are slightly different. What is the difference when the Prince of Wales and the Princess of Wales went to the Ukrainian embassy in London, helped out there, wore the colours of Ukraine? That is a political position. That is against Putin, who is a politician as well. How is that in any way different? And why wasn't there an outcry there? I don't really understand the difference. First of all, to you, Richard.
Well, I think that this is undoubtedly coordinated with the government. So it isn't a case of him just speaking out on his own as sort of loose cannon, not at all. But the fact that Graham is completely wrong regarding the environment. The Prince of Wales, for example, now the King, in fact, has campaigned on this for something like 55 years. It's absolutely extraordinary, the difference he has made. And there's no doubt, as an individual, the fact Ukraine is another example. The royal family do, linked with number 10 on any issue that could be controversial, and this most certainly is, they do have international pull and a certain cachet. The Prince, so far as numbers of engagements, I'd remind Graham that, of course, Catherine is recuperating, and that is why he's scaled down engagements so far this year. But the facts of the matter are that what he says, whether it's the Earthshot Prize, whether it's a matter of homelessness, whether it is issues dealing with mental health, it does it does matter.
This doesn't, I mean, the evidence is that he doesn't have any huge impact. I mean, he doesn't do an awful lot of engagements regardless of any other circumstances. But there is, I think, a difference. I think for most people, there is a difference between the 2 conflicts that you've talked about. I think that, they do have to be careful for their own sake in terms of what they say, which is why having a monarchy which can't be accountable for their actions and their statements is a problem. If we had an elected independent head of state, they could go further and say more, including calling out those who are responsible for anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and also those who are responsible for the conflict.
We've got to leave it there.
Which he's not doing.
Thank you both very much indeed. I expect lots of you at home will have views. We want to hear from you. Get in touch with those gbviews@gbnews.com.
When you interfere with your children, not interfere, that's the wrong word.
I know what you mean.
If you intervene with your children, Ryan, or anything, do they listen to you? When you say we've got to leave it there, do you say things like we've got to leave it there? We've got to,
I say I'm going to count to 3, and if you don't stop...
That's what to do next time round there with those sort of guys.
3,
just say,
and you're not going to have any TV.
Right, I just want to get closer to you.
Snuggle in.
Is that That's a better divide, isn't it? Yeah. Okay.